Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There's an interesting fatwa over here about haircuts. And what's really crazy is that the references they provide more nuance and they actually contradict the fatwa itself, which is just crazy because if you're typing out the reference, then you're probably reading it. And so, how is it contradicting your fatwa and you're still posting it? So, uneven hair lengths. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Is it permissible to get a haircut of unequal length? I've heard some say that the hadith of qaza applies to shaving a portion of the head and leaving other parts. Does this apply to any uneven length haircuts? And if not, then what is the scope of its allowance? Alright, al-jawab hamidan wa musalliyan. In principle, Muslims are encouraged to adopt such appearances that are modest, dignified, and respectable amongst the pious. Yes, that is true. One appearance that violates this principle is qaza, which is to shave a part of the head while leaving the rest. A haircut of unequal lengths would not necessarily fall under the ruling of qaza, provided there is not extreme disparity between the lengths, such that it looks as though part of the head has very little to no hair, while the rest has much greater amount. This is not a correct definition of qaza in of itself, and because qaza actually refers to shaving patches of the head and leaving patches. And this was done at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, as a disfigurement of the hair. It was not done as a fashion choice by any group of people, but rather it was done as a disfigurement or like an abasement of the person. They would shave and leave patches of the head unshaved. However, it is important to note that a haircut falling under the category of qaza is not the only factor that leads to impermissibility. Okay? Another factor that requires attention is refraining from tashabbuh, imitation of non-Muslims, open sinners, and the opposite gender. Any hairstyle or haircut that imitates said groups would result in impermissibility. In summation, there is scope for getting haircuts of unequal length as long as it is considered a dignified haircut amongst pious Muslims. There is so so we have to ask pious Muslims for fashion advice. Historically, pious Muslims or people who consider people to be pious Muslims do not have a very good fashion sense. There is not extreme disparity among the lengths, and such a haircut is not intended to resemble or is otherwise not identifiable with non-Muslims, open sinners, or the opposite gender, and Allah knows best. So right here, first of all, this is a gross misunderstanding of tashabbuh bil kuffar. Tashabbuh bil kuffar, it refers to imitating the non-Muslims or imitating a specific feature of a religious group. For example, if someone were to wear a chain that has the cross on it, that would be tashabbuh bin nasara, right? So that would be tashabbuh bil kuffar, to imitate something that is a salient feature or a distinct feature of that particular religious or that particular group. So to wear like a swastika or something like that, or to do something to portray yourself in a way that people can easily mistaken you for a distinct religious group. Now, if we look at the references, so for the first part of the fatwa, we have this reference, this one right here, that Muslims are encouraged to adopt such appearances that are modest, dignified, and respectable amongst the pious. If we go to the hadith over here, which is a very interesting hadith, pops up عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لولا أن أشق على أمتي أو على الناس لأمرتهم بالسواك مع كل صلاة. That if it wasn't difficult on my ummah, I would command them to use the miswak, or to brush their teeth and to clean their mouth thoroughly before every single prayer. I don't understand, what does this hadith have to do with wearing clothing or with appearances? This has to do with hygiene. And then the Prophet ﷺ said that لا يمشي أحدكم في نعل واحدة ليحفهما جميعا أو لينعلهما جميعا, that a person should not walk with just one shoe, either walk completely barefoot, so remove both shoes or both sandals, or wear both sandals. And this is not really, it's not a specific kind of ruling that, hey, don't walk, it's not permissible to walk with one shoe, but rather if a person is walking with one shoe, they just look out of place in society, and they just look like, they just look weird. And so this is why, like, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, like, don't do these kind of things. The next hadith is man kana lahu sha'run falyukrimhu, that whoever has hair, he should take care of it. So these hadith, they don't have really anything to do with this first part of this fatwa. But anyways, let's go to the second part. So now we're talking about what is qaza. And what's very interesting over here is that we have a definition of qaza right here with this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited qaza. And then Ubaidullah said, I said, what is qaza? So Ubaidullah showed us that when a child shaves their head and they leave like a patch here and a patch there. And فَأَشَارَ لَنَا عُبَيْدُ اللَّهِ إِلَى نَاصِيَتِهِ, and he basically pointed to his forehead, and he said, you leave a patch here, you leave a patch there. That is qaza. And this is not something, it's not a stylistic choice. If it's done as for a stylistic purpose, and if it's like a culture, like some of these soccer players may do these kind of very wild haircuts where they will like shave a patch, leave a patch. If it's done as a style, then it doesn't fall under the definition of qaza, because qaza was a form of disfigurement and a form of it just looked off, and the society considered it to be something like to make a person to deliberately make a person look ugly. But it's very interesting that even if you go by the literal definition of qaza, this statement right here goes against, and also other statements, if you read all of the references, it goes against the definition of qaza over here, because the person who wrote this fatwa, he defined qaza which is to shave a part of the head while leaving the rest. The definition in the hadith, though, is to shave patches of the head and leave patches, and that would be a correct and a better way of explaining what qaza is, and a more accurate way of describing what it is. Now the next part is the Tashabbuh bil Kufar, which I already talked about, and that is that even if your haircut imitates like the general non-Muslims, it's not like a distinct feature of a religious group, then it is completely fine. But if it becomes a distinct feature of a group, for example, like how cops always have this weird kind of haircut that they always have. Now, if you do cut your hair like a cop, that would not be like tashabbuh bil kuffar, and hence haram. But it would be pretty obvious to people that, hey, this person got like he got the military special, or he got like the cop haircut. So that is actually what tashabbuh means, that to do something that is a distinct identifier for a religious group, that is something that we should avoid. If it's something that is a general stylistic choice, then it is completely fine.